Now we come to the big monster, the cloth dynamics. Now remember, with the other objects, we pretty much just loaded an object, applied the dynamic, and it was able to do something useful right off the bat. Well, the party is over. Things are a bit different in cloth dynamics. In this case, I've loaded up an object. It's a subdivision surface object. It is just a pair of large flat rectangles. They are not just planes. They are actually, they do have some thickness. And we'll give it a little extra geometry here. They were beveled boxes to give me a little bit of extra geometry on the edge. Alright, so we're going to go in and once again apply our dynamics. We're going to select cloth. And cloth has kind of been the holy grail of 3D animation, that along with water and fur. And one by one we're knocking them down. So let's just calculate this and see what happens. Nothing. Absolutely nothing happened. One of the reasons is we don't have any motion assigned to this. So let's go ahead and keyframe something. And we're going to create a key there. And we're going to have it just move back, and then jump forward. And I called it curtain, so we're going to try to get some kind of curtain motion going here. So it's just moving back and moving forward. See, even though it didn't look like it did anything, calculating that cloth dynamic is deforming it. Even though I'm moving it, it's staying right there. I think I'm going to whip it back just a little bit more. Alright. So I'm going to open up my FX browser, which is right here. And I'm going to move it off screen. All I'm going to be doing is hitting the start key just because it's much more familiar. Alright, so now I've calculated it. It doesn't look like cloth at all. It just goes flying off because that was my first motion. There's nothing else being applied to this. There's no wind, there's no collision, and it's not moving back the way I would like it. So with cloth dynamics, you are forced to actually adjust some of the properties to get something useful out of it. So the way that is primarily done is fixing a point of it, because cloth needs to have something to make it move. Otherwise, it just looks like a solid, static object. If you want cloth motion, part of it has to be pinned down or being blown by the wind, or having something come through. So what we're going to do is put in basically a curtain rod. The curtain rod is going to be a point selection. And the point selection was a set of points that I selected in Modeler, which was just the top rim here. And this is under fix. Now fix means, basically it means fix it in place or remove it from the deformation, or this is what you're going to use as a guide to remove it from the calculation. So we're going to calculate it. And we can see already now the top bit is held into place. It's like what we're grabbing it by. And it looks like we need a few more frames to calculate here. Have the motion. We still have a lot of junk going on. But at least our top is fixed and the ends are waving around. Now part of the problem here is it is basically acting like it is in zero gravity. It's just flying up in the air as if there is no gravity being applied to it, and the reason for that is that there is no gravity being applied to it. So before we get into anything else, let's apply some gravity so at least we have some semblance of a natural action. So in the Dynamics tab under the ClothFX, the fix was under Basic. I'm going to jump over to etc. and give it some gravity, and we want gravity to be on the Y pretty much. And let's see, we'll just put in a -2. I know it's not exactly right, but you know, you fudge a lot. And let's take a look here, and then we have the motion. Now that is not the cleanest cloth that I've ever seen. We've got a lot of triangles in there, so we're going to crank up my deformation a bit more. I have it set at 6. Let's try 10. And we need to recalculate, as you can see. And, you know, I mean, even that might not be enough. Let's go to 15. Now, it's a good idea to set your display level the same thing as your render patch when you're calculating, because the display level is what it uses when it's calculating the deformation. So here we go with, we went from 6 to 15. Our object is a lot smoother, and it is taking a lot longer because there's a lot more math to do. And we have, you know, it's still not perfect. And cloth, you can't take right out of the box and get something useful. Like Hard Dynamics, you could put in your logo, put a collision object, have something cool and useful. Cloth, just by its very nature, requires extra effort to get things done. But this is basically what you need to get started with using cloth. You apply it to your object, you fix some part of it. The easiest thing to do, the easiest mental thing to do, is just go into Modeler and select a bunch of points that you want to fix. And here's our object. And let's create a new point set. I'm going to select my center points here. Great. Go to my S button for point sets. New. We'll call it Center Fix. Synchronize this with layout. And now switch to layout. Go into my properties, ClothFX, and I'm going to fix center fix points. And now the center is basically becoming the curtain rod. There's a lot of other settings here, which we will get to in a little bit, but for right now, we're just examining how we can basically set up ClothFX. You see, they're bouncing around, they're interpenetrating, they're stretching way too much. Cloth just takes time. In Lightwave, cloth is optimized pretty well, but there is no way around it. If you're going to be using cloth in anything, it takes time to set up your settings, to set up your material, your controls. In the end, you get really cool action. I mean, this is a very complex interaction of all the geometry, which there would be no way that you could set that up otherwise. I'm a great believer that you can do pretty much anything you want in Lightwave, but it would be very difficult, and I would say impossible, to get that motion without using some kind of dynamic simulation. And here we are in the camera view. You can see it moving in. And it's interpenetrating, which means it's passing through each other. And we will get to that in just a moment as well. But the important thing is, when you're using Cloth Dynamics, you need to most likely apply some type of fix. So you have one end to grab it, or if you're not applying a fix, you need to have some action applying it, either to move it or to hold it in place.